apologies for the lateness of the start of this meeting, especially those who are joining us in the public forum. Yeah, we've had some great presentations. We've had a good start. So first of all, we will start with a karakia, and I'll hand over to Phil, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, ke mā kina kina ki uta, ke mā taratara ki tai, ehi aki ana te ata kura, hei teo, hei huka, hei hauhu, tihei, mauri ora.
Thank you, Phil. Can I call for apologies, please? Do we have any apologies today? No apologies. We'll move on to the confirmation of the agenda. Is everybody happy with the agenda? I'm going to presume yes, that is the case. So we're going to ask for a mover and a seconder, please, to confirm the agenda. So Angela will move and Jeanette will second. All in favour? Carried. Are there any disclosures of members' interests? No, that's great. Then in that case, we will move to our first item, and that is the public forum. And I'd like to welcome Pamela. Pamela, would you like to come and take a seat up here? So, Pamela, I know that you've been in the chambers before, but there's probably a number of us newbies who you haven't met before. So I'd like to extend a warm welcome to you. I'm Liz, and I'll be chairing the meeting today. But you have 5 minutes to talk to the elected members around the table, and then we'll go from there. So if you just want to push the button, the right-hand side, and that will, yeah, that's the, oh, I'll try it again. As long as your red thing is flashing, no.
Okay, so I had a look at the one of the documents under the Land Transport Management Act, the Regional Public Transport Plan. That's the 10-year plan, 2022 to 2032, section 2.3.2, which is on page 10 of that document. The topic is accessibility and service design, coverage versus ridership. And then it gives an explanation of what those mean. These are not opposites, coverage versus ridership. I think we might know that ridership is a level of the number of people who are riding public transport, whereas coverage has a completely different aspect to it. That means that the public transport is covering a wide area. So I do think this term ridership is a misleading term in this context. And I think what reflects the understanding that this section is trying to present, the much better term would be coverage versus corridor. Because what it seems has evolved with the buses in Hamilton is that there are low frequency services which provide coverage, and then there are high frequency services that bring people from that have to walk a further distance to get to the bus. And so that's why I think this needs to be changed. So, you know, that's why we have this advertising which advertises the high frequency services. And it seems like the low frequency services are a bit more neglected. So I think that if we replace ridership with corridor, that will much better reflect the ideas that this document is trying to present. So that's the first point that I'm wanting to raise in this meeting. The second point I'm wanting to raise is to do with this plan for Hamilton buses for the future. Now, I didn't know about this plan for Hamilton's buses. I stumbled across it, a feedback form on the Waikato Regional Council website. Nobody knew about it. It wasn't advertised, and there was a feedback form which was available for people to make comments and answer questions for 19 days. This is not democracy in action. This is not soliciting public opinion on the future of buses. And I don't think this reflects what Hamilton people need for their bus network. There needs to be a lot more public input before this kind of thing can be implemented. What I also saw was that the responses from 1,200 people that did manage to find the feedback form hidden within the Regional Council website, they are going to be acted upon, which I think is not representative at all of what the people of Hamilton need. The third point I'm wanting to make is that the signage for Hamilton's buses is not adequate. What you have at bus stops is a sign that says download the Transport app. I did download the Transport app, but every time it gave me misleading or incorrect information, so I have deleted the app. So that is something that I think is a very, very difficult thing for a lot of people. In January, I was in Christchurch and I took the buses in Christchurch. The buses there had the number of the bus displayed very prominently at each bus stop, along with a timetable. It was much, much easier to use, and I don't see any reason why something similar can be happening here in Hamilton. Also, the signs at the transport centre are very misleading. There's 3 buses that go to Chartwell, and they just say Chartwell with the numbers, whereas I think previously when they had the names of the route, the Fairfield route, the Rototuna route, the Chartwell route, it was much, much easier, especially for first-time users. So that needs to change as well. Also, there are, for most of the buses, there's no number on the side of the bus, which is very confusing for people. I've been at Chartwell wanting to take a bus into town. The number 14 bus takes a really long route. It takes a long time. And so unless you walk around to the front of the bus and have a look, then you don't know which bus you're going to catch because it just says either city centre or transport centre. So that needs to change as well. That's about it. Was that 5 minutes?
Yeah, thank you, Pamela. No, you've done very well, and there's a lot of information there. I noticed obviously it's mostly centred towards the city, so
Yes.
obviously
Well, I live in Hamilton City. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah.
So our elected members who are here, you know, who serve the city, will be definitely taking a lot of those remarks on board, and as myself too as the chair. So
Thank you very much.
thank you, Pamela, for coming in today. Appreciate that, and again, apologies for lateness.
Are there any questions?
I don't have anyone with their lights on. Well, Angela would like to. Yeah.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Pamela, for coming in. Good to see you again.
Yes, nice to see you too.
and it's great to have feedback from a user in Hamilton.
Yes,
and
I have no choice. I don't have a car, so I use the buses a lot. I get around.
my question to you would be, what would good look like for you? You mentioned the ridership versus the coverage.
Yes.
And I know you've given us feedback before about the Meteor and the
Yes,
services.
that's correct. Yeah.
So what would good look like for you?
Well, in that document, the Regional Public Transport Plan, 2022 to 2032, the 10-year plan, instead of the section saying accessibility and service design, that's section 2.3.2, page 10. Instead of saying coverage versus ridership, it should say coverage versus corridor. That gives a much better description of the 2 opposing kinds of routes, because with the term ridership, it's very misleading because, you know, when we're talking about ridership, often you might want to say, well, the ridership has increased or the ridership has decreased. It doesn't reflect what that section of the plan is trying to say.
And we've heard your feedback as well around bus design with the numbers around the route and
Great. Okay.
at hubs as well, having
Yes,
clear,
that's right. Yeah.
clear signage. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for coming in.
That's it, is it?
Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Fabulous. Okay. Right. We're going to head into to our agenda. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome to Joe Butcher from Aotearoa District Council, who has joined us online. Welcome, Joe. Okay. So our first item is the brief subcommittee induction. So I'll hand over to Phil.
Good afternoon, committee. This is the first meeting of the triennium of the Public Transport Subcommittee of the Regional Transport Committee. To provide you with an introduction to the operating environment that we have within the Regional Council, and then in the context of the national funding systems and priorities, I put together a few slides to take you through how some aspects of the public transport business work, who some of our partners are, where some of our networks are, some of the data around the types of service that we operate. My plan isn't to go through all of those today based on the tight agenda, but rather to take the slides as read and provide you with an opportunity to ask any questions that you wish.
Thank you, Phil. So for a number of us have been on other committees, and obviously the induction may well be, some of the information may be repetitive. So I just wanted to check to see whether there were any questions in this space. Yeah. I mean, the slides are there. If there are any questions, feel free to please, get in touch with Phil or one of the team, and we can certainly run through any queries that you might have about them. But otherwise, I think the information is pretty straightforward. Great. Okay. In that case, we will just ask for we've got a recommendation just to move and receive the report, induction report. So Alvisa's going to move that. Jeanette's going to second that. All in favour? Carried. Great. We'll move on to our director's report, and Lorraine's going to join us again. Thank you, Lorraine. You're a repeat presenter today. Hand over to you.
Thank you. And again, pretty much take the report as read in the interest of time as well. Talks about local government reform, which will cross and become increasingly topical for this committee. Just to bring to your attention that NZTA is preparing some harm prevention public transport guidance, and it covers sort of roles and responsibilities, information and communication and infrastructure, among other things, just about how nationally we will look to, I guess, be more active in the space of harm prevention. They were originally had a closing date of February, so the guidance, Waikato Regional Council made feedback on the day that we gave it. They notified an extension, so we could have brought something to the committee, but it was done and dusted at that stage. But just to note that because it talks about roles and responsibilities, it does impact on territorial authorities, because particularly around much of the infrastructure provided for transport, and it's things around crime prevention through environmental design, that sort of thing. Just noting that the Hamilton and regional bus contract renewals are underway, with requests for proposals expected to go out later this month. We noted the Cambridge Connections work that's underway. That's a Waipa initiative with Waikato Regional Council in support through publicity and promotions, but also looking at Cambridge Connections bus study work. There's a brief update on national ticketing solution and the bus fares review, which is coming up, which is a review of fare structures, concessions, and fare cappings and zones that we're hoping to simplify before national ticketing.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lorraine. So I think that was that the end of your report? Yeah. I think what that does is just it certainly highlights the key issues facing us in this public transport sector in this space, and these are I guess the live issues that are currently out there at the moment. So I'll open the floor for questions, and we've got Sue and then Roger.
Thank you for the report, Lorraine. I have a few questions, but I'll start with your report on the bus contract coming up and the process for that. So I'm here with a request from Hamilton City Council that in that contracting process, or in that request for proposals process, that can we please ensure that it is not narrowed by requiring the service providers to provide the assets, in particular the infrastructure requirements for EVs. From Hamilton City Council's perspective, we think it's really important to keep the scope of those contracts as open as possible, so that there can be some consideration of the pros and cons of taking an approach where the provider of the service is required to also provide the infrastructure. So that's the first thing, as a request from Hamilton City Council, and anything that we might need to do today to enable that if the subcommittee is of a mind to do so. So perhaps I'll give you an opportunity to speak to that.
So this is a conversation that we've been having through the PT subcommittee under the last triennium, as well as with our council in parallel for a couple of years. We're at the end of a process getting ready to go straight out for a market procurement exercise. So the time to significantly adjust the program as it stands is limited. I guess there's a question between a decision on doing something differently and procuring on the basis of keeping an option open for a further consideration, which perhaps might need long-term plan processes at your end or at our end or anywhere else to enable. My recommendation for your consideration would be if you wanted to pass some kind of a direction committee that would then allow a conversation back within our council that would lead to the way that RFP process is set up, so that the service delivery portion and the asset delivery portion are separated, that could allow for that further consideration later on, perhaps is a way forward. But your consideration.
Just I guess a bit of background for well, not that I've necessarily got the background, new onto this committee, but for other members around the table, as I understand it, the decision to be coming up for between March and August will lock us into a particular direction of travel for from 2028 for how long is that contract for?
It's usually a 9-year contract.
Not for 9 years, and unless we do take this course of action that's been proposed, that it really does limit the nature of the service providers who could possibly put forward a proposal. And it also means that Hamilton City, for example, being a significant part of where this activity is going to take place, would not have the opportunity to invest in infrastructure itself for the provision of the service in the future. So we would be seeking support from around this table to open that up so that both of those options are available for the RFP process, so that we are not, for the sake of a few months, actually tying ourselves up with a particular course of action for quite some time to come, with the introduction of the new fleet of EVs.
Maybe just for the committee's knowledge, the previous model of procuring public transport has been based on what was called the PTOM, which was a market-led only option where the supplier of the service provided the depot. There were some changes made through the Land Transport Management Act by the previous government that provided a broader opportunity for the consideration of how each aspect of the public transport system could be created and owned and delivered. And for the last couple of years, we've been working with staff at Hamilton, as well as in our own technical work, looking at what those viable options could be. And as our councillors in the room will know, back in the middle of last year, the workshops that we had, both within our organisation, but within Future Proof, and we were consulting on new networks. There were a whole range of conversations. The direction was relatively clear that council wanted the market to lead that process, and the decisions that council made in August last year, which have flowed through into discussions that have been happening within the new triennium this year, have been focused on that being the model that the regional council wanted. And there have been relatively recent conversations between the two organisations that have suggested that there might be other ways of doing that, either with yourselves or with another landowner, perhaps iwi or other landowners that might want to own the land that a depot gets built upon. We had a workshop within our organisation last week where the direction was clear that the way forward was potentially to continue with the process, but to be clear with suppliers that there were a range of potential providers of depot land, depot assets, depot systems, but that the regional council's position was that it wasn't going to do that itself. So if we're now looking at what's been proposed today, the way that we take that forward within literally the 15 days that we've got now before we go out has to be on the basis of trying to find a way through that keeps options open as late as possible. The challenge we have is that the non-Hamilton contracts will go live in November 2027, and the Hamilton contracts go live in mid-2028. So the requirement to be doing something this financial year, probably in preparation for, but certainly ahead of the long-term plan process, is a constraint, because if we don't get direction until mid-2027, that's going to be 9 months after the contracts are let, and then the process of how quickly something can be built so that the contract can start in mid-2028 is the challenge that we'll have to work through. But I think direction from the committee, and then we can take that back and keep talking to you and your staff to help us.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Can I just ask what the downside, what if any downside there is to widening the scope?
I don't think there's any downside. The challenge is being clear with the market, so that when we receive tenders, they are clear as to what they are and what they include and what they exclude, and all parties are considered the same, and that there is an effective procurement process that is rational and can be evaluated clearly. And that's the piece we've just got to get right.
Yeah, so if I just talk regionally, and this is a question for either you, Phil, or Lorraine. So a number of contracts are going out for tender later this month regionally. And just for the committee's clarification, there's nothing in the tender document then to preclude any potential tenderer to put in an official tender, whether it has land secured or not. So that's just what I wanted just to double check, and that would satisfy you, Sue. So the tender doesn't require that, and I think your words, Phil, are that so long as that there is there's a great deal of clarity in the tender as to whether it does or it doesn't. I think that's probably what you'll be looking for. Is there anything else you wanted to check?
Trudy's leading that process for us. She's at the back of the room. I'm just wondering, Trudy, if you could respond to that.
Yeah. Good afternoon, elected members. Yeah, look, in terms of the infrastructure sort of conversation, we've made it very clear, one, in our procurement strategy, but also in the way in which we're shaping up our request for proposal documents, that the infrastructure is market-led, but that doesn't preclude those in the market looking to bid to reach out to organisations within the area to consider sort of leasing or land options. I guess through the duration of the contract, which they are unusually long compared to other things that we embark on within council, but there is that sort of option to buy back or first right of refusal at the sort of end of the contract. But I guess our take also is really these the operators, it's their core business. They understand where the efficiencies lie. Location for depot is a huge part of that, as well as connection to power, if indeed that's what would be offered from day one. But even on that note, we're just keeping that open to the market in terms of that transition, because we heard quite clearly in the last triennium through the previous members that we weren't to accelerate that transition to EV or whatever other option over diesel could be available. So those two mechanisms together create that competitive tension, and that allows some of the smaller players within the market to also compete, if that makes sense.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that there's nothing in the tender documents to preclude any necessary change.
I'm hearing something different, actually. I'm hearing that it is a requirement of the providers to have an ability to provide an infrastructure, either by themselves or by working, finding someone themselves. I guess the Hamilton City Council position is that we would not want it confined to that, because we think there are other options that should be considered over that time period, and as we lead up to the contracting for this particular period. So we are looking for a direction from this committee to allow a widening of the scope from what is currently being considered, for the reasons that I've outlined, to give some flexibility about what considerations might become available under the new triennium, in fact, because that's something that we do need to just recognise, is that there has been a change in membership of all of our councils over that period of time, and we really just want it opened up.
Yeah, so I think it is opened up. I can't see that there's any limitations at this point in time. So any organisation can work with a tenderer to provide land or lease land. There's no limitations that I'm hearing at all. So I'm not too sure what you mean.
What I mean is that it sounds to me like the RFP will be constructed in a way where the providers themselves need to have those arrangements in place when they come forward between now and August for putting forward the proposal.
I guess, sorry.
No, I'll hand it over to you.
Does that mean that Hamilton City will provide the land for a facility? Is that confirmed?
It means that we'd like to have the option to consider that. Yeah.
Right. And the process for doing that would be over a short period of time or a longer period of time?
Well, just a period of time. We're asking for the opportunity for it to be an option.
So if that was included in the tender, that would then, so long as you're asking staff to be open in that space when the tenders are received, that there may not be an end period when land has to be secured, whether it's a lease or a ownership. Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't know. It's necessarily that. It's an opportunity for providers to come forward that don't necessarily have by August an agreement in place for the provision of infrastructure.
That's reasonable. I think I'm going to let staff just consider that because I think that
I appreciate we're bringing it forward in this. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I think what you're actually asking for is an extension. So around the base of where something could operate from, and so I'm just going to let staff process that request, and perhaps we can come back to that.
Sure. Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you for indulging our time with
that
discussion.
So, we've got Roger and then Ray.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. See, I pressed it to think that I was pressing it to talk. They're all different, aren't they? Yes, they are. And thank you for your inclusion of Cambridge connections and the update there for this table. I think it's turning out to be, I think, a model of good consultation towards a positive outcome. So that's really good. I'd just like to also acknowledge an uprising star of film and video. No, Phil, who has actually completed a video on the dire need, I interpreted, of public transport for Cambridge. So that's excellent. Thank you for getting involved there, Phil. I think you got the message over really well. I notice in your report you refer to the first technical report 1, which is now completed. I checked with my colleague this morning who was sat here, Claire, myself, also with Mayor, and we've got no visibility on that report. So seems to me that it'd be quite important that EMs of that Cambridge should have visibility on that report. May I, through you, request that a copy be sent out to us?
So it was only received by council in draft form in December, so we haven't finalised it as yet, but once we finalise it, we can circulate it.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said it was finalised in the report. Has been completed.
Sorry, that's the background of the trends and the range of potential service models, and then paragraph 19 says that will now be refined and taken forward, and that will include some high-level costings, and that all coming together is when the report will be ready to share.
I would have thought that the involvement of elected members, though, was quite important in this process, and we've had no visibility, even in the draft form. So even in its draft form, it would be good to see.
We can share what we have.
Thank you, but it's excellent. We're going to have a final report on Cambridge Connections in December. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move Ray.
I was just supporting what Sue was bringing up through you, Madam Chair. But I think we've had a bit of clarification. You're going to get a little bit of sorting out through it. So I suppose from there we'll wait to see whether it is clear on that contract that's going out, to whether there is that possibility that they don't need to have the land secured before the tender completion.
Yeah, thank you, Ray.
Just maybe one comment is that outside of the urban area, the arrangements and the requirements for the transition to the new networks is at a different level, and the way that the units are structured and the way that the vehicles and the drivers and the systems would service those is different across each of those different contracts as they go out. So there's not necessarily going to be one answer that fits all in that process. So it's yeah.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah, just coming back to Sue's comments, just some clarification here. Is the reason for the 9-year term, is that so that, you know, if they're going to have to invest in infrastructure and I'm assuming stock, you know, vehicles, so they can actually pay for those? Is that why?
It'd be a huge consideration.
Huge component. So I don't see how it's going to be very difficult to run a tender if you may or may not have to provide infrastructure. I mean, that's going to make it very difficult. So you're going to have a pretty flexible program is all I would say. I mean, I can see the benefits of you know, potentially providers knowing where the best places to be for an efficiency and cost too in terms of opportunity. And I can see Hamilton maybe having some real opportunity here to do things better. So you're going to have to be very clever with this tender process in terms of trying to get the best out of that. But I understand, so the 9-year time frame is about the investment required for both plant and infrastructure, which is I totally support. A lot can change in 9 years too, though. But anyway, that's you got to go somewhere. But I just think this is. I'm just flagging that this sounds really difficult to do well. That's what I'm probably just.
It is.
Yeah.
The 9-year term is an NZTA requirement. So part of the procurement model that we have to align with the agency's requirements, and 9 years is the term that has been used.
I'm doing maintenance contracts. You can go and invest in specialised plant, you know, stabilising stuff, and that it allows you to operate, but you don't want that flexibility. And how do you get that? You know, so it's that
suggestion.
Okay, well, there you go. But what I'd probably flag is, if you want subcommittee advice, then we need to be kept informed, you know, of how you're going about and what you're doing, because it does sound tricky.
Yep, absolutely. Ash, and then Sue.
You can go back to Sue if you like,
Oh.
just because I might be on top. Here you go.
Okay, so you have the speaking
Oh,
paddle.
thank you for the second opportunity to have a second bite at this. Just probably to provide a little more clarity, really, that the way that we see that it could work is that when you're inviting the proposals, that there is that's separately costed out for strategic infrastructure and service provision. If they're separately costed out, then you can make some assessments that it leaves that flexibility there, rather than if it's all bundled up as one proposal, it's hard to identify which belongs where. So that would be one way of perhaps not having to redesign what you've got already, but making it very clear to the market that those two aspects should be separately costed.
Okay, look, thanks for that suggestion. I'm going to let staff ponder that, and we'll carry on with Ash, and then we'll see if we can come back to you on that shortly.
Okay, so first off, apologies because I haven't been able to open up the report or the agenda on this. So I hope we're talking about the bus services
Tenders.
It is?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so that's cool. Really good to hear that we're not accelerating the move to EV model because we're not saving the planet with it. Okay, so that's just one comment. But anyway, moving on. Hey, is there any consideration to like a park and ride model? You know, Hamilton's one of the fastest growing cities in the country. overseas, there's a lot of really good models out there. And if I think about back in 2014, actually, I got it tattooed on my arm, back in Bath in the UK, when you come off the motorway, there was park and ride facilities, and there's a bus every 11 minutes taking people into the city. And if you want to drive your car into the city, it costs you big bucks. So there was a push to get people into the buses, but they were also efficient, well-timed, and they work perfectly. And so, I think there's a big need for that. If I think about the ones coming in, from our district, even if, say, there was a facility at, say, Rotorua or somewhere out there, paddock, park and ride, and people can get into the city faster than they're driving, that's when we're going to get into buy-in for the public transport. Also, in from the other end of town, and also in from the airport end. Like if we become efficient, then you're going to get the uptake. And if you're not, then you won't. So if it's faster for people, it's a little bit like the train. And I said at the time, it needs to be fast getting into Auckland, because if you can drive there in your car faster, there's no incentive to use it. So it's just some of these things we need to think about. Like the lady in the room before said, Christchurch was a good model when she was at the bus station. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but look at other good examples from around the world, around our own country, and try and implement them before we make any decisions around the table.
Yeah, no, points well made, Ash. And look, there are 2 park and rides planned for the outskirts of the city. So I think that's been mostly identified in a lot of the work that Future Proof have been doing. All right, are there any other comments at this point in time? We are just receiving Phil's report. So that is where we are at. I'm fully aware of Sue's request, but it is sort of out of the scope of this item, but it's not to say we're going to forget about it or anything like that. Do I have a mover and a...
No, can I just have a quick
Susan?
question through you, Madam Chair? On page 23, we've got the plan there, and I know it's been quite a subject we've brought up at Karakia District Council about. We have the bus connector going from Morrenthal through to Pyro, that we feel there's no need for that, yet I still see it on the plan on page 23. What's the long-term provisions for that? And we'd also talked about a connector service within our district, which we can't do unless we have regional council approve us to do it.
So the map on page 23 shows current routes.
Yeah.
The future networks are all shown or were all publicly consulted last year, and include both a day 1 2027 or 2028 start, and then a series of incremental changes through the 9-year period. On day 1, the bus from Pairua would not come all the way through to Hamilton, and would start in Te Aroha at a location closer to the Pairua side of Te Aroha.
Yeah.
And the funding saved from that allows the creation of a connection or a series of routes within the Hauraki towns that grows over that medium and longer term.
Thank you.
I think
I've misread this thing.
No, that's today's bus networks there.
Yeah. Okay.
What's happening right now? All right, I move on a seconder, please, for
For you, Madam Chair, sorry, hanging out in the back, but just
yes.
going back to Ray's question, I think part of it was that our looking into the ability for district councils to provide routes for themselves. And I know it's a piece of work we've been doing, so I don't know, Phil, I think there's potential for an update in that space if you have one.
So your question is around the advice that we gave Hauraki many years ago that they wouldn't be able to operate a bus service themselves.
Correct.
Yeah. So my understanding of the system is that for a bus service to be able to be subsidised by the agency, it needs to be registered as a public transport route, which is a function of the regional public transport plan, and it has to be included on the register that's part of that document. In terms of tendering for services that have come about through all of the technical work we have done, in the same way that we are not specific on who needs to own the land a depot would be built on, we're not specific as to which types of organisation could tender for those services. And they would need to comply with the commercial requirements set out in the contract, but that could mean that anybody could tender for those routes. So there's nothing in the system that's coming up over the next few months to prevent a council tendering for those if it wished to.
So thanks, Phil. That gives clarity that there's the ability for the districts to tender for routes if the route that's outlined suits. Obviously, if they want to do something different, then that's outside that process.
Yeah, and I think the difference today compared to where we were however many years ago that advice was given is that we're at a different point in the procurement cycle. So we're in the process of enabling new routes and new units and new contracts.
Thank you.
No problem. So
Thank you. Different subject. The bus fares review that is discussed in the director's report. Can I just check whether that issues and options report is available for the subcommittee, and also ask the question about where the decisions get made on the bus fares? Is it this committee or is it somewhere else?
The intention is to take the bus fares work through workshops with both the regional council and then the subcommittee. The decisions will be made by the regional council in consultation with yourselves.
Thank you.
okay, if there's no other questions or queries, we will receive the director's report. Down up and move in a seconder, please. Elvis is going to move, and a seconder. Yep, Martin's going to second. All in favour? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Right, our next agenda item is our proposed changes to the Connect to Taupo trial service. And Lorraine, is it South? Yes, fantastic. Lead away.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This was the report prepared by Catherine Simpson and my team, but she is off presenting at a conference today, so I'm the stand-in. A lot of the work, again, relates to before I was here, but for a bit of background for the committee. So trial services are something that we try and attract funding for in our RLTPs. They're called kind of low cost, low risk, and then we run them for 3 years, usually the period of the RLTP, and the first 3 years, and to test their success or otherwise of these new services or other improvements. And it's instead of doing a business case to, I guess, attract investment from NZTA. So currently we are running these trials for Connect to Taupo, and they've been running for just over 1.5 years, and we did a review at a year because we were looking at some services were well subscribed and others weren't, and what were our options of So this is seeking.
Oh no, yeah, we're just turning your microphone back on. Sorry, Lorraine. It disappeared.
Okay, thank you. So this is seeking endorsement today to a package of changes, and they include for route number 36, which is Turangi through to Taupo. It's increasing to 3 times a week, and with a bus. This is where we were able to secure a bus, but there's a trade-off, and these are all set out in the report, but just to bear in mind, there's a trade-off in that people can go to Taupo more frequently and more people can go, but the time in Taupo is for 2 hours, not 3 hours. And that's because the bus that we've secured does the school run before and after school. So this is how we can secure some extra options in between those times. For Tokoroa and Mangakino, number 37, it's an increase to 3 times per week. So we're adding capacity there. by adding a Wednesday service, and it's a revised timetable as per the consultation, but without diverting to Kinloch. For route number 34, Acacia Bay, this is dropping from 3 to 2 trips per week, dropping the Wednesday service. This hasn't been attracting patronage, and to get some the other improvements, we have to take a driver off on a day to utilise them elsewhere. And likewise for Wairaki, service number 38 will be dropping from 5 down to 4 per week, by dropping the Friday service on that one. For Kinloch, which I mentioned before, we would be retaining it with once a week service and some minor timing. So the overall proposal, as it says, there's trade-offs. It's mostly within the cost envelope, because that's the other thing that we have to work to. There's a small amount, but that's affordable within the wider public transport services budget. And the intention would be to do it this year to get some more data to, I guess, enhance the patronage that we might be able to achieve for when we go back in our next RLTP. We might be able to get these services included in what we call our continuous program, and then that would secure ongoing funding for them.
Thank you, Lorraine. Right, we invite questions on the proposed changes. Elvisa and then Duncan.
Thank you. This is a great example of listening to the smaller communities and some positive news for our Tokoroa community who do use that service. So thanks for that. But I was just wondering, with the 2-hour window, is there potential in the future to extend that time if patronage was to increase?
Yes, that's what we'd be looking to sort of demonstrate, that it's a viable service, but then we would want to get the longer term funding, and then present that that would secure the extra bus or a large vehicle.
So you're just building up the data, basically. Yep. Cool. Yep. Thank you.
Duncan.
Well, yes, look, just got a couple of things to say. First thing though, I suppose that there is some level of disappointment at Provo District Council in the process, I suppose, in that we seem to have skipped from consultation, consulting the public and getting feedback. That's a good first step. But we seem to have skipped, well, I think we've seemed to have, I know there's still room for that not to happen, but we seem to be skipping straight to Waikato Regional Council saying, okay, we've listened to you, we've got a plan, here it is. And the important step that seems to be missed here is putting out that plan for feedback to see what people think. And unfortunately, we do have some significant reservations about the Turangi service, actually, and it's really all about the 2-hour window, because it's all very well putting on a bigger bus, and that is what people have asked for, and that's good. But the problem is you're asking for, it's effectively, I mean, this bus is put on for Turangi people to go to Taupo and do their business. People who don't have access to a car. Turangi doesn't have banks. They don't have a hospital. So there's a few things people like to get done, and we're effectively now asking them to do 2 hours of travel for a 2-hour window to get their stuff done. And there may be an extra day for that, to do that, but honestly, the feeling from our point of view is that it could turn out to be quite a white elephant. That bus will actually be less popular than the existing small 12 bus service because, I mean, this is speculative. We don't know, but that this is the feeling from the Turangi community. I'm not from the Turangi community myself, but I've talked to some people there and I've taken that bus and talked to the Turangi councillor, and that is the strong feeling. And I understand how it came about because, well, as far as I can tell, yeah, there's a school-run bus based in Taupo because he's got to get back. And so it effectively means if someone was travelling from Taupo who wanted to spend the day in Turangi, well, they actually get a 4-hour window. But the problem is virtually no one does that. So, I mean, solutions, it would be nice perhaps, say, if there was a Turangi-based school bus who had to get back to Turangi in that time. I mean, that just popped as an idea. Yeah, I hopped on the bus the first time last week or so to have a bit of talk with the commuters there and have a look around, suss it out. And the idea even popped up that they quite possibly be happier just having the same little bus with the same schedule, but an extra day. That might go down better than what's proposed here. So, as in a larger bus, 3 days instead of 2. But the problem is that 2-hour window. So that's the first of my. That's the biggest issue we have, really. So I'm just trying to explore where can we go from here.
Okay, look, I think, Duncan, that's an excellent suggestion. So I'm going to hand over to Phil for some comment and let's see what we can come up with.
Yeah, so this is a conversation that that the Regional Transport Committee, I guess, was having over a couple of years of the last training. And we brought the issue of overcrowding had come up on the operations report a few times. In the context of a fixed trial budget, we then took an action to do this investigation, and from the investigation, it led to the consultation, and then from that, we led to the report in front of you today. We're not committed to making any change. We have a fixed budget and a fixed trial, and we operate within that today. We have a couple of times a year where we make changes to our network, and I think if we don't support what's on the table today, we'll miss the next window, but that doesn't mean that we can't do it at a future window. But this is the results of that work coming to you today. So I guess it's here for the committee to think through and make a decision on. But obviously, Taupo's views in that would be very important.
Yeah. Well, could I just we're calling it a trial. So what was the intended duration of the trial?
I don't have the end date in my head, but these are for a set period of time with a set budget approved under a low cost, low risk budget from NZTA. Means no 3-year period.
3-year trial. Is that what you're saying? Oh no, it seems like quite a long trial to me. If it does go down well, to be honest, that doesn't sound too hard to flick back and change back to the old service. If it didn't work out, wouldn't that be correct? Or
sorry, I've probably confused things. We get funding for 3 years to trial new services, and that's what we've been doing. And into it, we realised that we had some capacity issues, and then we had some services that weren't doing well. So this is just an option to rejig the trial for the remainder of the 3 years to get better data, potentially to secure it as to secure funding for an ongoing permanent service. The timing that Phil mentioned around the timetable changes, we'll do them in May and in September. So we could leave it and do something different in September, but then if that didn't work, we would have a very small amount of time to adjust, or we go into the next RLTP when as I said, we're looking for permanent funding rather than trial. Trial is just what NZTA calls this bucket of money.
Oh, okay. The terminology, okay. But the practicalities of it seem, well, certainly I'll emphasise the process. I certainly believe I think we could have been consulted with this for feedback and discussion for decision time now. And we haven't had, I mean, we received the, I suppose, notification of this a week ago. So certainly that's my comment on the process here. I think there's, yeah, there's a flaw in the process. But can I just ask a question as well? Talk about cost envelope. Yes, I mean, you're containing it within a certain cost envelope. Have we considered increasing that cost envelope? I mean, it's occurred to me in the past that, hey, if we want a bigger bus for touring and an additional service, well, maybe we'll just have to charge Taupo District ratepayers a few extra bucks on their rates bill. That would be palatable. Sounds simple. Is it that simple?
Well, that would have to go through an annual planning process, which again would need to be secured, because if you're looking to invest more money, you not signal the trial funding envelope, if you like, is the amount that we applied for initially at the start of this RLTP period. So it's money that NZTA said it would co-fund for these 3 years. If either Waikato Regional Council or Taupo District wanted to spend more, that wouldn't necessarily attract co-funding, but we could do it, but we would have to consult the ratepayers through the annual plan to get their agreement to money.
Oh, and the timing of that consulting for the annual plan is when?
It's pretty much now.
Oh, so we are consulting, because you don't have to. I don't think you have to always consult for an annual plan. I suppose that applies to regional council too.
So the regional council had its annual plan conversations on the 25th of February and considered its rates rises for the year and has elected on the basis of there being no significant decisions not consult.
Okay. Oh, but in this 3-year trial, sorry, maybe I missed the point here. When did that start?
Started in it would have been approved from 24-25. So it sits with the for these 3 years.
So look, what we might do here is, I think, Duncan, I think you need a lot of questions answered by the sounds of this. Okay, and I think what I'd like to do is bring this out of this forum, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
What I'm happy to do is for you to work with staff directly, just to have all your questions answered, because but that does what the recommendation that we've got in front of us today does still endorse the proposed changes. Now, can I just have clarity, please, Lorraine? There is an opportunity to alter that service again if it doesn't work and the constituents are not happy with the amount of time that there is, obviously, and Taupo to do their business. Can we alter it again this year? Heard September. I just wanted to get some clarity if that is an opportunity for Duncan again too. Because I guess what you're hoping is that it does work reasonably well. If it doesn't, you want an opportunity to better change it again. Is that right?
Well, we have grave reservations that it's not going to work very well. I mean, we could end up with just a big bus floating around with fewer passengers than before, and we'd like the opportunity Well, it should be named quite clearly to the public. This is a trial, and it should probably have a set duration rather than when we get round to changing it. I would suggest 3 months, and we will review public feedback, and then after that, we will consider whether we will continue it. I mean, that sounds acceptable to me.
My worry is that customers will just have got used to a new service at the point where a further change occurs. And we're pulling services out of some communities to fund this change.
Well, I suggest Turangi is quite a small community, and that it is not like a city. They do communicate and talk to each other. I have confidence they could handle the thought of a change back, especially if they don't like what they're getting. Yeah.
My recommendation would be, Chair, to pull this report, and we'll engage further with yourselves to work out what it is that will work for all parties, rather than making a decision today that we then reverse.
I'm agreeable to that thoroughly.
Okay. Does that mean there'll be a delay to the trial? Or there'll be no change? There'll be no change? Okay. So that the trial's in process now, but I just want to make sure that there's no change to any service or any delay to anything. Okay. All right. If you're happy with that, we'll just we won't put the motion, and we'll pull the report, and then have an opportunity for you to engage and perhaps do some more consultation out there in the community. Is that agreeable to you?
Oh, well, certainly, I'm talking about the Turangi service. It affects not just me, actually. I don't know if it's possible to take bits out and implement others.
Okay, unfortunately, it would affect the other service as well, because it is just one funding.
Can we make an amendment?
I've just asked that question and the answer was no.
Well, if Taupo don't support
Well, through the chair, is it possible that we have these discussions outside this forum and quite promptly get back? I don't know. I'm not sure when the next meeting of this quarterly. Well, is it possible to do an extraordinary online item?
Yeah, I would rather get this right with all parties than to get it wrong and have a worse situation than what we have now. So yes, let's pull the report, but let's work with both of you to ensure that we end up with services that are going to work for both of your communities without compromising. But let's be assured that the service continues as normal for now, and we'll come back. And if we have to do an extraordinary committee meeting, that may well work.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Okay. I think that resolves it. Everyone's in a happy place. Let's just make sure that, like I say, we do get that right. So, Mesh, you're the next speaker. Thank you.
Madam, may I just have a question? The current speaker. I'll make it.
Oh, we haven't changed items. We're still on the same subject. Yeah, so we'll go Mesh and then Roger.
Thank you. First of all, I just wanted to applaud the optimization of a current asset. You've got a school bus and you're looking, how else can we use this asset? So I just wanted to applaud that first. A couple of questions around a couple of comments that you made, Lorraine. Was you said that you're going to run it and then you're going to see if it's viable or not. What does that mean? What are your metrics around that?
So when we ran it for a trial, the metrics are uptake, and we will be looking forward, will be required to understand the, I guess, the not quite the fare box recovery, but the private share. So that would have been different from when we were envisaging this as a trial, but they'll be the standard metrics that NZTA requires to consider it for future funding. I guess we could change how viable it is if we change how we want to fund it. So if we don't want to seek future co-funding from NZTA and we want to fund it local share, then that would make it more.
What does that mean in terms of regional council spend on it though? How does that flow into rates?
So the process of turning a trial into a funded bus service, which is what we describe as the continuous program, that's a pot of money NZTA gives for multiple year contracts. We have to achieve the things that were identified in the trial, but also achieve NZTA's value for money requirements and a whole bunch of justifications for the funding to become permanent. As we saw with our collective regional bid for new services in the 2024 to 2027 period, the agency was responding to a change in government policy direction, and there was no Crown funding for any new bus services in this 3-year period, which includes the conversations about Hamilton Airport that come up frequently as an example. In order for those trials to be reinstated or for those services to be included as part of our permanent future networks, we then have to go back through that whole process. So we're trying to align with government policy and the NZTA funding allocation requirements as we go. So when we get to the end of the current trial period, which will be the mid-2027 financial decisions that get made as part of the Regional Council's long-term plan, and then the Regional Land Transport Plan, and then the National Land Transport Plan, we would be needing to prove the justification for these package of services around Taupo in the context of all of the other regional public transport services that we run.
Thank you. So I appreciate that it sits within a broader package of transport outcomes, transport funding, et cetera, I guess, what's the model? So I know that, public transport never pays its own. It's always subsidised, right? What are the expectations of subsidy around this new pilot service?
So those are the same as the subsidy system for all other public transport services. So we have a nationally set fare box or private share target that we have to achieve in terms of the cost of a trip in the context of the total cost. So we're at something like 18%, I think, is our requirement for next financial year. So there are discussions about fare increases for future years to achieve those targets. Of the remaining funding, 51% is funded by NZTA and 49% is funded by Waikato Regional Council.
Thank you. And my other question was around the trade-off in putting on this service, that there's an increase that's going to come from pulling services from somewhere else. So the total cost envelope doesn't change. Is that right? You're just going to move services from one place to the other?
So the basis of all of this process has been within the fixed sum of that trial, just within the Taupo area. So it's not having any impact on any other services across the region.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Nish. Mike, and then it was Roger.
Yeah, so similar issue but different. I think that's the right move. Is that Taupo, Tokoroa get involved in sorting this out. I've got a similar one. Happy to take it offline. But Tamahiri Matangi. Look, we had a 3-year trial. We're funding it. We wanted a review. We asked in October for a review. We got told that we could do the review because we were funding it with it. So through our Matangi and Tamahiri committees, we tried to undertake that process. Very difficult to change anything. And then we've had a significant disruption with the closure of 2026 and Matangi Road. And then we tried to rejig it to suit a CC, which has been very badly hit by that closure. Couldn't do that. The review is going to take, if we do review it, it's going to take 6 months. The trial's only it runs out in February next year. So it's pretty pointless doing anything. I'm just really frustrated with the lack of ability for us to have any input into, there's no flexibility. Our communities haven't been well served. At the moment, I don't think the trial is probably sustainable based on, even though it's a good service and the usage has been higher than anticipated. Subsidies are up 30 plus per person per ride. anyway, look, the whole process has been not particularly good from a community perspective, and very frustrating in that we've had this major issue, with the closure of the highway, and we haven't been able to. We have had no say in the rejigging of that. I accept that we've got to stay within that cost envelope, Phil, but I would have thought we would have had some more input into what that looked like, especially when we've got businesses hurting like a CC, and they were one of the big users. So, yeah, happy to take that and address that outside of this forum.
No, I'm. One of the reasons that this subcommittee was established was so that we could have some of these conversations. So it's really good that we are. In the context of that route specifically, we did not feel there was value in undertaking a significant review while a major road is closed that route services, and we didn't know that whole of that route was going to be as significantly impacted as it has been, because we didn't know exactly which roads.
We told you that. We said it would be, and it was an opportunity to rejig things and do it differently while the closure's in place, and then we might keep some of those in place afterwards, and we were unable to have any real input into that process.
I haven't been involved in that level of detail.
That's what's happened. So we'd like some more discussion on that. Happy to do it outside of this.
Yeah, Mike, let's do that. It sounds like there's been some poor timings, across the whole thing. So yeah, let's try and understand a little bit more about the position we're in and what we can do to salvage what's left.
Yeah, so it's similar to Taupo, but it's a similar trial system that's looking, needs rejigging.
Yes, you've paid for it.
We paid
you?
for it, and we got no say in what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, all right. No, thanks, Mike. Roger.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Really interested in this discussion about the trial of a service, because hopefully we'll be going into a trial very shortly. But what does come out of this discussion to me, and part of it was my comment earlier on about having no visibility over what was happening, so no connection with the EMs of Waipa, but from what I hear, no connection with the EMs of Taupo, either on the changes to their service. So I'm wondering if there's something where the process could be enhanced to make it more effective with the communication with the councils that are relevant for the service.
I think this is our first meeting of this Public Transport Committee, and I think it is the rebirthing of a lot of communication improvements as well. So I think this is exactly as Phil said, this is the place to have those conversations. The elected members around this room will be, of course, required to bring back to their own councils the suggestions and recommendations as well. Ray, you are next on the speaking list.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I've just got to ask, how do we get a trial established in the Karakia Plains? Like what I just heard about having a school bus do the route. It was something I brought up to our council 2 years ago. From Thames, there is a bus that brings students to Ngatea, Karakia Plains College, comes over full, goes back to Thames empty, sits over there all day, then comes back, picks them up. Where we can have residents filling that bus, going back there, sit there all day in Thames. When I say all day, 4 or 5 hours, and then they'll come back. Same to Pirral. But Karakia Plains College has a bus a day from Pirral to Ngatea, and Thames has the same. So the connections are there, and I would be confident those trials would work.
Yeah. Hey, look, the utilisation,
Yeah.
which we've been talking about for a lot of today on freight, and but it absolutely lends itself to public transport as well. So can I ask?
We're talking about that connected service within it, and yet we've got that capacity sitting there, and it has been set. It's been sitting there for years.
So can I invite you to engage, directly with Phil on this matter, and let's see where we can take this. I think it's an excellent opportunity. So identifying all those opportunities, isn't it, really, more than anything else? Understanding where there is capacity and where we can improve, where we can improve things, that's for sure. Right, Duncan.
Oh, yes. You think that we've got empty container syndrome going on?
Yes,
Yeah.
Empty air, I think it was.
On the back of that talk Mike was saying of flexibility, yes. I mean, just to put it into context, I think, and this was a really rough order figure I calculated a year or two ago, and I have no idea if it's totally accurate or not, but I figured, this affects smaller communities like ours, quite substantially though. I calculated it would be about 200 grand a year to put on to engage an extra bus, not just using what we've got. And with 20,000 ratepayers in our district, we could be charging all the ratepayers an extra $10 for the sake of one extra bus serving one community. Like $10 a ratepayer. And if my figure was right, 200 grand to put an extra bus on for a year. I mean, that sounds, I would be prepared to charge all our ratepayers an extra $10 to serve a part of our community, which actually houses in the order of 20% or so of our population. So I think we should get the flexibility surely is there. We just got to do it.
Yeah, and there's a conversation with your own council as well. Of course, it needs to play a big part with that. So, all right, okay. As we mentioned earlier, we're going to leave that that item on the table, and we're going to come back to that. That's of course the changes to the Connect to Taupo trial service. So leave it on the table for now. We'll come back to that at a later stage. Our next item, moving on, is the Central Government and NZTA work plan. Lorraine is here still. So we will hand over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Some of this will be a little bit repetitive because it was covered in sort of the director's report in a little bit less detail at the Regional Transport Committee this morning, where some of the members were here. The central government, key part of the central government work plan that we're focused on at the moment is the total mobility review. Was covered in detail this morning, so I might take that as read until we get maybe answer some questions. And then the NZTA work plan comprises essentially what they're calling 5 shared sector initiatives, and there's several work streams in the initiatives, but as we're speaking, a lot of them impact on nearly all of the items that we've discussed in both meetings today where public transport is involved. The first one is around some ongoing work streams around that building up a capacity for understanding how we can improve private share, which is that part of funding public transport that comes from the fare and or other revenue than the ratepayer or the taxpayer. So this has been ongoing since the government policy statement for 2024, and not progressing at pace, it has to be said, because of I guess a lot of work being done to understand actually where the benefits of public transport lie. So therefore maximise where the costs should, fall, I guess. The second work stream is around sort of efficiencies, and it's looking at changes to what we call the RUB, the requirements for urban buses, and that's actually one of the biggest constraints for when we don't find efficiencies with using ministry or education facilities, Ministry of Education or other school and other facilities, because their buses usually don't comply with what we call the RUB. So we can't necessarily use them for public transport services. So in the case in Taupo where we got the bus, it was just that the operator that we use also had the contract for Ministry of Education, and the bus that they could supply was compliant, because you can't just necessarily pick up a school bus and use it for public transport, because generally but buses are older and don't meet the requirements. However, the due to the requirement to bring in zero emission buses, NZTA is considering increasing the average age of the fleet. That's one of the requirements for the RUB. We have to have an average age for our fleet requirement, which again may open up some potentialities there. They are looking at specific procurement to, I guess, have standardised clauses and approaches to procurement of PT contracts, services and infrastructure. And in this work stream, they've actually been working with Waikato Regional Council on our bus contracts renewal program, and are looking at using our current one as a model for a template. And they're also working with Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch on ownership models for depots, the changing fleets as we move to zero emission. There's a data optimization work stream that's pretty much internal to NZTA, and it's around standardising data collected for PT operations, and it's to support the rollout with national ticketing. They're looking at producing some guidance material on 3 different topics, and those ones are including total mobility, but that's a little bit delayed because of the total mobility review. And then finally, there's another work stream that involves looking at just specifically concession fares and how they might be standardising some of the fares. And that's, again, it's in advance of national ticketing, so that with the long-term aim of, if you have this type of concession in the Waikato, then you would have it in Otago, you would have it in the Bay of Plenty. And it's important because some regions don't recognise a carer for a concession on public transport, and others do, and it can be confusing. So again, I don't think they're making much progress on that at the moment. But all of these work streams, they're called shared sector initiatives, so they work either with us as individual councils, with the procurement, depending on where we are in the process, or they have a small sector of representatives from usually the PTAs, the regional councils, to input into the development of the guidance and the documentation.
All right, thanks, Lorraine. Right, we have some questions for you. Is that okay? We're ready for questions. Yeah, we've got Angela and then Roger.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just through you, Chair, I'm wondering if Nairi's still online, if she could answer some of my questions.
Yes, she's here.
Okay. Awesome. I did message Nairi earlier, just to give her a heads up about what I was going to ask. Yeah, so it sort of was in the report this morning, but not so much in the one this afternoon, but it is PT related. And that was around in our internal transport committee the other day, it came up about bulk funding and that ability for us to be more nimble with our P2 services for local needs. So Nairi, my question therefore is, do any regions in New Zealand get bulk funding for public transport in order to meet that local need, flexibility and those trial bus services?
Thanks, Angela, for your question, through you, Chair. So not per se. What does happen is, as what's been discussed with one of your previous items around low cost, low risk funding for trials, and there is some flexibility within that. But if you're sort of envisaging a wider bulk funding mechanism than that, no, there isn't, and other regions, no other regions either.
Okay. Is there any scope to look at that in future? Just thinking with the change in the GPS last time in Hamilton City itself, missing out on a key fast and frequent bus services, which would have delivered all the deliverables, which, fare box recovery, bums on seats, etc. Yeah, just wondering if there's any room to advocate for that type of thing moving forward.
So moving forward, that would be something that would be, as you said, through the GPS. Next GPS in draft form is likely to be available around the middle of this year. And then obviously following the election, it would be finalised. But that is the mechanism that directs us in terms of funding. So yeah, that's your sort of avenue for advocation.
Okay, no, thanks for answering that. I'll leave the other question that I had and maybe get an email answer for you on that one. Lorraine, just around the Motu Move, you mentioned the nationwide sort of discussion around, say, age of a child. I know it's different in every region pretty much, surprisingly, and then concessions. Is that on a staff level that is being worked out? Just thinking, as you mentioned, the accessibility +1 care.
Yeah, no, so the work in the shared sector initiative number 5 is just around 2 specific concessions, and that is the accessibility, and the other one slipped my mind. There are, I guess, prescriptions concessions in for Motu Move, and then there are some others that there are all the others that the regions currently have and want to continue forward, but they're not consistent amongst themselves. So that is further work that will have to be done within NTS to, I guess, standardise as much as possible, or have the system be able to recognise, because obviously, again, it's not just accessibility. You might be a student here, you might not be a student there. So if your card's registered here and you're using it there or whatever, how does that apply? But that's some work that will have to happen as part of the national ticketing. But there is some work that NZTA is doing around, or has been asked to do, just to look at the accessibility. One other concession there.
Yeah, probably the other one is the time of use for super gold holders as well. That's different wherever you go. Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, what's the process? Like, a staff from each region advocating, and there'll be some sort of rationalisation. Like, what's the process?
We don't have a process for the concessions. I mean, we will work through with our fares review what kind of concessions we want to take forward. We mentioned that earlier. We don't have a process prescribed to us at the moment, and obviously the changes to fares and concessions is a political decision, so it wouldn't be staff organising it or arranging it until after the decision's been made.
Okay, so probably my next question would be then, what forum would we have that political discussion? Would it be through the regional sector transport group, or?
The starting point will be the fares and the concessions that we have now. And then the changes will come through the review of the fares policy, and then the changes of the actual fare that you pay when you get on will just be the playing out of the fares policy. So we mentioned that we are planning to have a workshop for the fares policy with the Regional Council, Transport Committee, and then one with this committee.
Could I ask then that the information that comes to us recognises what other people do across the country in regards to some of those issues, age of the child? Is that in scope, or is that sort of out of scope?
It's not within scope at the moment. We probably would be bringing the standard concessions for NTS and then perhaps look at where some other councils are doing some other things. The precaution that you have to bring into your approach is all different councils will have different demographics, and then they'll have also different ridership characteristics. So we will still have to be achieving our private share targets and improving our private share. So if we have more students or more super gold or more accessibility concessions, that or less, that will influence how the private share.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking from a user point of view that obviously we have interregional services, that there is consistency between Waikato and Auckland. So
Yes.
even if we just looked at what they are doing, just to get a bit of user ease of use, because
Yes.
that's the whole point of
Yes.
Move. So
Yes.
yeah, but I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Okay, Roger, and then Sue.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Now, I apologise if you discussed these particular questions in the early morning session, but it is to do with the mobility. I noticed that Taupo and Waipa have got $18.75 max. My question is, and I'll ask the question and then tell you why I'm asking, is who sets those dollar figures and what are the factors that determine those figures? And the reason I ask is because now we're seeing Cambridge in particular growing quite geographically extensively. And in fact, if you look at the footprint, it's 10 kilometres north to south and 10 kilometres east to west. And in those new suburbias, we're getting a lot of new retirement villages, which tend to be the client for this. But we're also getting, because we're a tier 1 town, we're getting large urban density requirements. So we're now getting up to units 25 per hectare. So a lot of people and lower number of cars. So who do we go to influence that payment?
So the current regional variance is sort of historical, mostly because the way that this council used to rate for its transport services, the density and the I guess the growth in Cambridge should support more providers of total mobility services and more competition, and that's should improve the affordability or at the cost end because of the competition, and also as urban areas grow, they have more facilities and a range of facilities for people to access without sort of having to travel into Hamilton or the larger centre. So these are the things that we'll be looking at to try and when we working through how we will respond to the request from the government through NZTA to look at lowering our caps.
If your reason, the growth developed more competition and hence lower top price, surely that would apply to Hamilton, and yet Hamilton get 22 as against we get 18.50. So the presence of competition and the growth of the centre seems to be a little bit at odds.
So the fares were, the maximum fare subsidy was set historically But that doesn't mean to say that more trips in Hamilton cost more. It's just that for that area, there was an agreed higher subsidy. What we do find is that trips in urban areas are usually tend to be shorter and lower cost. It's quite different from the maximum fare that would be paid or subsidised.
So the trips in Hamilton would be shorter and less costly,
On average.
and yet their amount is $22, which is greater than ours.
So that's the maximum subsidy that would be paid. So that is why we need to look regionally as to how to reduce the cost, because if 50% of trips or 80% of trips in Hamilton are $25, then they're not getting the maximum subsidy. So if they're $27, you're not getting the maximum subsidy. So reducing the maximum subsidised fare of $30, which gives you the $22, is not going to have an impact.
I obviously need more education on this system. Right, so we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your.
What might be helpful actually just to understand that a bit better is, I don't know if whether there's an email that you can send Lorraine to us all that just articulates it, just so that we can reread it a few times and completely understand it. Would that be okay?
There's reports coming forward to council to consider the options, and unfortunately they are going to be quite dense reports. It's probably not easy to distill into an email that's going to explain it all.
Okay. No, I hear you. We'll wait for the next time it comes up on our agenda. Okay, Sue, and then we'll go to Duncan.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, just returning to that conversation actually, and coming back to what I think I inappropriately asked in this morning's forum, but deserves this forum instead. Trying to understand whether and it's interesting that government calls it strengthening these mobility services when in fact they're reducing them. That the 10%, the requirement to cut 10% that is coming from central government, is that on the maximum subsidy rate, or is it on the total spend that we have across our region?
That's not clear. The first 10% is a government reduction. The second 10% is stated as NZTA working with the councils to reduce the regional fare cap. But we don't cap fares, we have a maximum subsidy that we pay for fare. And it's not completely clear, but I guess we're all getting information together. That is, I guess, how close we would be to actually reducing the overall cost by 10% of paying the maximum subsidy. But that's why I'm saying it's not that easy, because we don't pay the maximum subsidy on every trip.
That's right, yes. So what I'm trying to understand is their reduction, so I mischaracterised it, it's actually 20% that they're requiring. So 10% is from their dropping from 75 to 65. So does that automatically move those maximum caps down or not, that part of it?
No, that doesn't move the caps down. It increases the cost that the user pays for the trip.
Not good for the user. Any other? No, you're good?
I'll wait till the paper comes. I have more questions.
Yeah. All right. It's going to be an interesting one. Okay, Duncan, you've been waiting very patiently.
Well, you're just on the same topic of total mobility. And I know we did discuss it in the previous meeting, but just to clarify, we're going to be reviewing this. The caps I'm interested in, because in my mind, the caps should really be a function of just distance travelled. So if you've got a really low cap, that's going to disadvantage people who have to travel a long way, i.e. Relevant to our district where we have got isolated communities. So could you just have a timing on when we are going to be reviewing these caps in particular, and when we might be able to put out some revised caps?
The intention is to take the first report on options to the Waikato Regional Council in April.
Oh, so that's when we might get a decision to change some of the caps? April.
So I would imagine that would then come here for conversation after that, but we need to get a sense of our own organisation's direction before we can bring anything to you. So I suspect we'll have a paper that will go to our committee, then we'll bring something to you for discussion. The changes in terms of the timing of these, the first 10% is the 1st of July, isn't it? But the second 10%, is that clear in terms of timeframes? I don't believe it's as clear, is it?
Not as 100% clear.
No. So this isn't a conversation that will be resolved immediately.
Okay, Martin.
Again, I wish to talk on behalf of my district about the mobility scheme. This was a game changer for our population, and we have the highest aged population in the country. Yes. And this absolutely changed it. I think the report says in 2022, the government then changed the subsidy from 50% to 75%. This government is now looking to bring it back down to 65. And again, as someone muttered to me before about this doesn't seem to people that I've talked about, this doesn't seem to be strengthening the total mobility scheme. This seems to be trying to gut it. And the idea that we could put in point 15C, talking about enabling new types of providers such as Uber, that just seems to me a complete red herring. It also says in point 16 that it's consultations open till the 22nd of March and WRC will submit on the proposal. So what's that submission looking like? Because I know what I'd like to put in it. But we won't get to see that, or?
Well, it's public consultation. Anybody can submit.
Yep,
So
right.
the Waikato Regional Council submission is being drafted. Probably it will express a range of concerns around the impacts that it's going to have, that the proposed changes are going to have on our total mobility users. And we are, because we obviously we're just a co-funder and we administer the system, we've got a number of suggestions around administration which we feel could be streamlined and improved. For instance, people with the requirement to have your disability status confirmed every year.
In case someone who's blind suddenly gets to see again.
That's correct. And so, we'll probably have quite a bit to say on where we think that there could be improvements made in the administration of the scheme.
The short, I guess, version is that, we'll be submitting, but we're strongly encouraging district councils to submit as well.
Yes, and we'll be encouraging our Age Concern and all our organisations to submit. But what I'm hearing is that this subcommittee won't get to submit, won't get to see that submission before it goes in.
So it's a regional council submission, but because you've got your own entities, we're just relying on the fact that you'll be doing your own individual ones. This committee is not sending one.
Yeah, I get the feeling that I might have people ask me, oh, you're on that regional council subcommittee on public transport. how come this submission from the regional council didn't, you know, did you have any involvement in it? And I'll just have to say, no, and then they'll say why, and then I realise timelines are tight and didn't fit in with this meeting, but
Yeah, we'll just double check with Lorraine to see whether there was a reason why it wasn't on the agenda today. Sorry for you on the hot spot.
timing, probably timing.
Possibly timing.
Yeah, mostly timing.
Yeah.
To get it to the submission, but the yeah, I guess as I said, our focus will probably more be on the administration, which is probably not something that this committee has much exposure to.
Angela?
Yes. So if I could just maybe offer what I'm hearing. So yeah, Lorraine, you're saying our point of view is slightly different to the districts, but the districts would offer a really good user point of view. And maybe we could get our submission just circulated so that the likes of Martin are aware of what we have submitted on. And yeah, even if there's some, Martin, you've got some thoughts that you could maybe email through to the chair and could strengthen our submission as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're yet to see it in draft form as regional councillors, but I would like to think that there is a user perspective as well, not just the admin side of things. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's aim to do that. Let's make sure we get a draft submission around to all of the committee members in this room today, please. And yeah, please send back some feedback if you have some. But again, just strongly encouraging you to ensure that you're getting you've got your own district councils submitting as well. Okay. Any other queries? Is everyone ready for a break? I think we'll have a break if that's okay, just for 10 minutes, and we'll come back to the Tahuia update. Let's move this item actually. Sorry, yes, the Central Government and NZTA work plan. Just the report is received, so Roger's going to move it, and someone's going to second it. Martin's going to second it. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. All right. See you all back in say 10, 15 minutes, please. Will you what?